this small African nation is producing more than the West brothers and sisters, something extraordinary is unfolding in West Africa. Something powerful enough to rewrite decades of dependency and challenge everything the world assumed about African agriculture. For years, Burkina Faso was described by foreign analysts as a fragile nation, too dry, too unstable, too poor to ever feed itself. Yet today, under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, this same country is producing more food than entire Western nations with larger budgets, bigger machines, and supposedly superior systems. How did this happen? How did a landlocked nation with limited resources achieve what wealthy nations failed to? This story isn't about miracles. It's about decisions. Hard decisions. Revolutionary decisions. Decisions that flipped the script on dependency and placed power back in the hands of the people who work the soil. If African sovereignty matters to you, press like, share this message, and subscribe for more political documentary analyses that expose the stories others refuse to tell. Let's begin. If you travel through Burkina Faso at sunrise, you won't just see fields. You'll see a people who have survived droughts, displacement, instability, and decades of foreign-imposed agricultural models that never worked. For generations, farmers labored from dawn to dusk using tools older than the countries that judged them. Yet despite their effort, the nation remained dependent on food imports: rice from Asia, processed goods from Europe, and cereals from neighbors with better machinery. The contradiction was painful. A nation full of farmers, yet forced to import food. This problem was not new. It was the result of long-standing neglect, outdated systems, and policies designed far from the rural villages they affected. Leaders came and went, each promising better harvests, but none daring to confront the structural root. Africa cannot feed itself when it does not control the tools it uses. When Ibrahim Traoré assumed leadership in 2023, the situation had reached a breaking point. Food insecurity was rising. Imports were draining the national budget. Farmers felt abandoned, treated as scenery rather than the backbone of the country. Unlike his predecessors, Traoré did not begin with conferences or donor meetings. He went straight to the fields, speaking with farmers who had stopped believing anyone in government actually listened to them. Men and women who had weathered decades of hardship explained what they needed. Not theory, not speeches, but tools, access, and respect. For the first time in years, someone in power didn't dismiss their concerns. He listened. And from this listening came the foundation of a national shift: food sovereignty. The first major step was the 78 billion CFA Mechanization program, a transformation no Western institution ever attempted to fund without attaching conditions that undermined sovereignty. Traoré refused foreign control. Instead, he used internal resources, gold revenue, national funds, and contributions from the AES alliance. Machinery began arriving across the countryside: tractors, tillers, seeders, plows. Over 400 tractors, over 1,000 tillers. Fertilizer distribution doubled. And instead of leaving the machines in city warehouses to rust, agricultural engineers were deployed directly to rural zones. They trained farmers, they repaired equipment, they stayed on site, not in offices. This alone changed everything. What once required a week of back-breaking labor could now be done in hours. Planting seasons became predictable. Risky delays vanished. Farmers began expanding their land, planting more, harvesting more, and, crucially, producing surplus. But this agricultural revolution wasn't happening in isolated, peaceful conditions. Burkina Faso was battling insurgency. Armed groups attacked villages, displaced families, and destabilized regions. Under normal circumstances, agricultural production would collapse. Yet the opposite happened. Why? Because Traoré understood something previous governments ignored. Security and agriculture are inseparable. He reorganized farming zones to avoid conflict-heavy regions. He coordinated with Niger's drone intelligence to predict militant movements. Farmers were given short windows of safe operation where mechanization allowed them to complete large tasks quickly. Jobs were created specifically for displaced people, preventing youth from being lured into armed groups. In Burkina Faso, farming became an act of resistance. In the midst of conflict, the country recorded 2 consecutive years of grain surplus, an achievement analysts in Washington and Paris quietly admitted they did not expect. But mechanization alone does not create sovereignty. Growing food is only half the story. processing it is the other half. For years, Burkina Faso produced raw materials that were exported cheaply, only to import them back at higher prices. Tomatoes rotted during the harvest season. Mangoes were sold for pennies. Cereals lost their value because nothing was processed locally. Traoré's administration decided to build community-owned processing factories. Not foreign-owned, not donor-dictated, not loan-financed with strings attached. The tomato factory in Bobo Dioulasso, 80% owned by citizens through APEC, is the perfect example. Local tomatoes become paste. Local workers earn salaries. Local farmers have guaranteed buyers. This model is expanding to rice, potatoes, mangoes, poultry feed, and flour. The economic shift is dramatic. For the first time, value stays inside the country. But behind the policy changes lies something deeper, something that explains the emotional surge across Burkina Faso. The memory of Thomas Sankara. Sankara believed that a nation that cannot feed itself cannot be free. In 1984, he declared, "Let us produce what we consume. Let us consume what we produce." Under his leadership, Burkina Faso reached food self-sufficiency before his assassination. For decades after his death, the country drifted back into dependency. But today, farmers see in Traoré a continuation of that unfinished mission. The connection is not symbolic. It is strategic. Sankara empowered the rural population. Traoré is doing the same with modern tools and updated methods. Older farmers speak of him with nostalgia. Younger farmers speak of him with pride. Both see the same truth. This time, the vision is being implemented correctly. Mechanization is not replacing traditional farming. It is upgrading it. Processing plants are not replacing local markets. They are strengthening them. Drones are not militarizing agriculture. They are protecting it. The results? Farmers planning expansions instead of retreats. Villages reviving abandoned fields. Communities forming cooperatives. Youth staying in the countryside instead of migrating. Food prices stabilizing. Surpluses growing. Domestic pride rising. For the first time in a long time, Burkina Faso is not simply surviving, it is building. And this frightens outside observers. Western institutions question the numbers. Analysts search for weaknesses. Critics claim the rise is temporary. But on the ground, in the dust and the morning light, the truth is visible. The system is working. Which leads to a final question. If a landlocked nation under sanctions, facing insecurity, with limited resources can do this, what will happen when the rest of Africa decides to follow the same path? If this inspired you, share this video with someone who needs to see Africa differently. Subscribe for more political documentary analyses, and let the world know Africa is rising, not by permission, but by decision.